And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside as always by my co-host Andrew Johnson. And Johnson, just 2 days from tonight, it is opening day in the MLB's 2025 season. We saw last season the Los Angeles Dodgers coming out on top as the World Series champions. And we'll see if they can go back-to-back this year in 2025. A very interesting offseason, though, that we had this previous offseason. A lot of movement happening, some big-time free agents moving to different places. And tonight here on the show, we're going to be breaking down our division picks, as well as, giving insight as to what happened in the offseason for certain teams, as well as giving our picks for the AL pennant, the NL pennant, World Series, MVP, Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, you name it. We're going to break it down here on the show tonight, Johnson. Cannot wait to see what this 2025 season has in store for us.
I took a look at the odds a couple days ago, and I'm good. I could skip this.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm positive.
You don't have a team, though.
Yeah, but I don't want to see the Dodgers win against.
Of course.
So I'm rooting for 29 other teams, or like 27 other teams. I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's definitely not 29 because there's still some hatred from your previous team for certain teams in the NL East. We know that for sure. Up to you. We can pick whatever division you want to go into first. We don't really have necessary order of what division we're going to go into, but if you want to decide which division we start off with first, we can break down what some of the teams have done in this previous offseason.
Let's start in the AL East. Let's start with the Yankees. Let's get that out of the way.
Yeah, let's just get it out of the way. So it has been a very rough offseason for the New York Yankees. Obviously, losing Juan Soto to the New York Mets. They lost Gleyber Torres to the Detroit Tigers. Clay Holmes also going to the Mets. They did sign Max Fried. They did sign Paul Goldschmidt. But the biggest news for the Yankees this season, now going into this year, is their injuries have really stockpiled on them going into the 2025 year. They've already lost Garrett Cole for the entirety of the season due to Tommy John surgery. They're going to be without Luis Hill, the AL Rookie of the Year last season. I believe Clark Schmidt is also going to be out for an extended period of time. So the Yankees are down 3/5 of their starting rotation before the first pitch of the season has begun. And now a guy like Max Fried, who was coming into this season as the number 2 starter, now has to be the ace of this team going into 2025. And you look at the rest of the Yankee rotation, it's a little bit of a question mark going into this season. And that's really where, that's going to be the biggest question mark, as well as the Yankees lineup. Because the Yankees lineup, you lose Juan Soto, that's obviously a huge loss for this team. Goldschmidt is a little bit of an upgrade that they had last season compared to first base. But there's a lot of question marks. They didn't really address the third base side of things for them, so they're going to be rolling with, I believe, Oswaldo Cabrera for the time being at third base. Giancarlo Stanton is also injured as well. LeMahieu has been injured for God knows how long. But you also do bring in Cody Bellinger in a trade with the Chicago Cubs. You bring back Jazz Chisholm after that trade with the Marlins last season. Volpe, you're hoping, takes that third-year jump. But as I mentioned, Johnson, as well, also getting Devin Williams, I should also don't forget that, the new closer for this team. But as I mentioned, going into the season, your rotation is going to be Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, Marcus Stroman, Carlos Carrasco, and you might have Clark Schmidt for the beginning of the season, but there's still time to tell if that's going to be the case.
Yeah, not really looking great for the Yankees. However, they're favorites to win this division. We can go touch upon the other teams. We can touch upon the Red Sox, the Orioles, Blue Jays, Rays. Tampa Bay is in all sorts of disorder.
Well, we saw at Tampa Bay what they did last season. Remember, they traded away pretty much the entirety of their roster at the deadline last year, essentially throwing the white flag on the 2024 season. This past offseason, their biggest move was getting Ha-Seong Kim, the former San Diego Padre. They also got Danny Jansen, which wasn't a bad move as well. They really didn't lose as much as well in this offseason. They almost lost Shane McClanahan, though, before the season began. He got injured prior to the opening day, so he's going to be out for the first couple weeks of the season. Thankfully for Tampa Bay, they are going to have him at some point this season. Remember, he was out for the entirety of last season with that Tommy John injury, so it's good to see that he is going to be back for Tampa Bay. But, yeah, they're in a weird spot because their rotation still, I would say, one of the better ones in the AL. You can toss and turn on what do you think about that in terms of that scenario. But if you look at their lineup, it's probably not as good as a lineup as they've had, obviously in years past. Jansen is a new catcher. Yandy Diaz is still there. Brandon Lowe is still there. They're praying that Junior Caminero will take a nice big step this season at third base. They brought in Christopher Morel last season from the Cubs in that trade. And you're also looking to see what Johnny DeLuca, Josh Lowe, Jonathan Aranda, guys like that. It's a lot of question marks in terms of their lineup, and their bullpen, at least for them, has been good in years past, so you expect them to be good once again this season.
Yeah, you can argue that this team, the floor is very, very low, but the ceiling is very, very high. You have no idea what you get here. This could be a team that wins 75 games. It could win 100 games. We just
Yeah.
don't know at this point.
And another team in the division that made a lot of moves this offseason, Johnson, and I hate to say it, but it was the Boston Red Sox. They were very active this previous offseason. They signed Alex Bregman, the former Houston Astro. They brought in Walker Buehler as well from the Dodgers, Patrick Sandoval, Aroldis Chapman. They did really lose too much from their team last season. Most notable player probably is Tyler O'Neill and maybe Nick Pivetta for the rotation. But they also brought in Garrett Crochet from the Chicago White Sox, a huge trade that they got down with Chicago. The biggest concern for Boston is probably going to be their bullpen. Their bullpen isn't as strong. Liam Hendricks and Aroldis Chapman right now are the listed closers of this team, so a lot of veteran experience in that bullpen. But they have one of the better rotations right now in this division with Crochet, Tanner Hewitt, Brian Bello, as well as Bueller, and we'll have to see who the number 5 guy is. It was supposed to be Lucas Giolito, but he's still currently injured. But they also have some really big key time prospects as well coming into the season. Christian Campbell and Roman Anthony to note. Those could be opening day stars for them this season. And with also, you're bringing back guys like Jaron Duran, who had a great 2024 season. So, and of course, Rafael Devers, can't forget to mention him as well. But the Red Sox will be an interesting team. I think they are probably the sleeper team, and maybe in the entire AL, maybe to make it out of the American League as a pennant winner. And I think they have the second best odds in the AL East division to come out and move
Actually,
on to the postseason.
third best odds.
They have
That
the
would be
third best
number.
odds behind Baltimore.
Yeah, Baltimore would be number 2.
And I don't know if I agree with it because you know why? I think
I know they lost a lot. They lost Santander.
Yeah, they lost Santander. They lost Corbin Burns was probably the biggest one in my opinion. Not bringing him back. They tried replacing him with Charlie Morton and Kyle Gibson. They got Tomoyuki Sugano, the Japanese pitcher as well. Tyler O'Neill, I just mentioned before from the Red Sox. Gary Sanchez is one of their new catchers. I just don't know how I feel about Baltimore. It's not as how I felt about them last season, where there was a lot of momentum going into that 2024 season. But I think the biggest thing for them is they get Felix Bautista back, which is a huge plus. We'll see what Jackson Holiday has in store this season. Gunnar Henderson's going to start the year on the IL, so that's definitely a big loss. But they have enough talent on this team to, make sure that that is not a huge factor in the upcoming weeks. I think the only team right now, Johnson, in the AL East that's looking outside of Tampa Bay now looking as strong. Toronto also could be in that spot too because you don't know exactly where they're going, especially with the looming free agency year of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. No one knows what to expect for them. He very much well could be traded at some point this season.
Yeah, that's why Baltimore has the lowest odds in this division because you have no idea what's going on with Vladdy.
Toronto,
With
yeah.
the yeah, with Toronto.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So where do you think Vladdy lands up if he were to be traded? 26 years old, just turned 26, by the way. Clearly not as good as he was maybe a couple years ago, but still an all-star caliber player.
I,
What,
I don't
where do
even
you put
know.
him?
I don't even know. I think it's so early to tell. It really depends on what team needs a first baseman that badly. I know he's been linked to the Yankees for so long, but the only way he comes to New York is if it's through free agency. I have a feeling he probably won't get traded. I have a feeling he'll probably just stick out the year with Toronto, and he'll be a free agent at the end of the season. And I don't know, that could be a bad thing for the Blue Jays because I mentioned it last season before the trade deadline that they probably need to get something done sooner rather than later to avoid losing him for next to nothing. So they need to get something done in terms of contract extension, but it doesn't seem like that's going to get done anytime soon. But stranger things have happened. And I think the other concern for Toronto, I mean, they brought in Max Scherzer. They brought in Jeff Hoffman for their bullpen. You look at their lineup, Andres Jimenez, they got in a trade. Santander, they got from Baltimore, which is a nice get for their designated hitter spot. But they're just in a weird spot. They could be a team that could make the playoffs, but they're also a team that might be at the bottom of this division come All-Star break, and they might have to trade a guy like Vladimir Guerrero, just get prospects and try to rebuild. So
And with all that being said, Nick, who's your pick for the division winner here?
I'm gonna just go with the Yankees. I don't like it. I'm really not optimistic about this team this season due to all the injuries, but I'm just gonna stick with my gut and just pick New York because I'm not as confident as the rest of these teams in the division. The only other team that I feel confident in, and I hate to say it, is probably Boston.
And
But who do you have?
so I have Baltimore winning the division. So I think we both have Boston as a runner-up then, because I don't think the Yankees are going to perform. I think they're severely lacking pitching,
Yeah,
and while they may have some nicer bats, that you could argue that they're not going to blow games late in the game now, because you're going to have 7th, 8th, 9th kind of wrapped up. But that's a question mark who goes 1 to 6. Um, Used to be okay. Who's getting runs besides Stanton Soto? Well, you have guys like Jazz now that could score a run without even having to hit the baseball. They could walk. They could be leadoff. They can get a walk, steal second, and then just spit 2 pop flies later. They're home. So you can get guys that even without getting a hit score your runs.
yeah.
Guys like Jazz. But I still think the pitching is a major question mark until the Yankees can give me some hard data of their pitching, maybe around June or July. I'm gonna have them as my number 2 right now. I'm gonna have Baltimore as my number 1.
The Yankees' only way they're going to be fine is if they are able to render the storm while these guys are injured. Like while Stanton's hurt, while Luis Hill is hurt. They have to figure out a way to have that next man up mentality, and they've done it in years past. It's sometimes has worked, sometimes it's really catastrophically failed. They have to find a way to make sure that these injuries don't plague them as much. But losing Garrett Cole is the biggest one out of them all because you lost your ace for the entirety of the season, and you need Carlos Rodon to be the guy that you signed, 2 years ago to be that number 2 starter in this rotation because now Max Fried, who was supposed to be the number 2, and now has to be the ace of this roster and make sure that he can get the Yankees into the postseason in 2025. So I think time's going to tell when I think by the first 2 months of the end of the season, you'll get a glimpse as to what this team's going to be, whether they're going to be maybe into the playoffs or they're going to be a team that is just riddled by injuries to the point where it's not going to work out. And they're going to have to look towards 2026. So we'll see in time coming. But let's go to the AL West, Johnson. Let's go to that next division. And it's a division where I think you and I might agree that it's probably a 3-team race between the Astros, the Rangers, and the Mariners. The Angels Athletics, let's just face facts. They're nowhere near close to anything going on right now.
The Athletics don't even have a stadium right now.
I mean, the Athletics don't even have a city name. They're just going to be playing in Sacramento under the name the Athletics, and that's it. They did make some moves in the offseason. They got Luis Severino. I mean, that was a nice get for their rotation, but they're nowhere near any time, playoff movement. The Angels, I mean, they're still recovering from losing Otani. They're not going to be anywhere close to being anywhere near that where they were. And even they didn't make the playoffs even, during that time. So I don't even know why I'm saying that. But let's go into the other 3 teams. And we'll talk about the Houston Astros first. Their biggest move they made in the offseason, they did Christian Walker from the Arizona Diamondbacks. So a nice get at first base for them. They're hoping that this doesn't turn into what happened with Jose Abreu. If you remember, that contract did not really go the Astros' way. But as we did mention, they did lose Alex Bregman this previous offseason. So that is a big hole at third base they're going to be losing. They also let go of Yusei Kikuchi and Justin Verlander from the rotation. So you look at the rotation, it's Framber Valdez. You're going to have Hunter Brown. You're hoping Ronel Blanco continues his nice season that he had from last year. And then the 4 and 5 stars are going to be the question marks in this rotation. You do have a nice bullpen with Josh Hader as your closer. And around your lineup, you are doing a very interesting move by putting Jose Altuve out in left field after they got Isaac Paredes this previous offseason. So we'll see if that experiment works. But so far, if you looked at the spring training videos, Johnson, Altuve in left field has not been pretty sight so far.
I mean, what do you expect? The guy's played the infield his entire life.
Yeah.
I mean, no one should be surprised by this. It's probably going to be pretty awful. I mean, that he needs to be in the infield. He needs to be playing second base. He doesn't belong anywhere in the outfield. He doesn't have the arm strength to be out there either. Let's not even talk about that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But as you know me, I'm hoping for their downfall. That's no surprise there. The other teams in the division, we'll talk about the Seattle Mariners. Their biggest, they didn't really make too many moves this offseason. They got Jorge Polanco in free agency. You look as well, Randy Rosaria, they got the trade deadline last season. They're going to be bringing guys back, and probably one of the best rotations in the entire AL. You could even make the case that they have the best rotation in all of baseball. Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, and Brian Wu. A nice, solid closer as well, Andres Munoz. They have guys returning, and obviously their big time star in Julio Rodriguez. They just signed Cal Raleigh to an extension earlier today. So we'll see what the Mariners do. I think the problem for them last season, and you can even see it in their numbers, they could not hit the baseball. I think they had the second worst batting average in all of baseball just in front of the Chicago White Sox. And that's a very glaring sight if you're just slightly better than a team that lost. I don't remember off the top of my head what it was. I think it was 120 games, something like that. The Mariners have to make sure that their lineup does something productive this season if they want to get back into the playoffs this year.
And here's my take on this division. Uh, it's clearly a three-team division, like you mentioned before.
Yeah.
But I have the sickest feeling that one of these teams are getting left out of the playoffs, and I think it's going to be the Mariners. I think they're going to miss it just ever so slightly. I'm going to pick the Astros to win this division because until proven otherwise, this is their division. The Texas Rangers are going to be right there. I know they have DeGrom back, and that's going to be interesting. Sleeper pick for Cy Young, in my opinion.
Okay. I
So
don't hate that.
I'm going to go with the Rangers to play close runners up, but it's the Astros division until proven otherwise.
It could just be the spite in me, but I'm going to take Texas to win the division. I think last season, the biggest problem for the Rangers was being healthy, and that's really what hurt them at the end of the day, no pun intended. But the biggest thing for them is, you bring back Nate Eovaldi, which is nice. You mentioned Jacob deGrom. That's also a huge get. I'm curious what's going to happen in the rest of the rotation because they're going to have Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker start the season in the rotation. If they are up to anything where they were when they were initially drafted out of college, then that could be really good for Texas going into this season. And you look at their lineup, it's probably one of the better lineups in the entire AL as well. They got Jake Berger, as you've been a fan of him before, a nice solid power hitter to play first base. Jonah Heim is a nice solid catcher. Marcus Simeon, Josh Jung, who was at the beginning of the season the AL Rookie of the Year by far, then got injured. Corey Seager is a solid shortstop. They have Wyatt Langford, Evan Carter, and Adolis Garcia in the outfield. And they even signed Jock Peterson to be their designated hitter this past offseason. I love the Rangers lineup so much. It's going to come down to the rotation. If the rotation is just good enough to help hold on to these games, and I think their bullpen will just be good enough, maybe add a reliever at the deadline. I think Texas has this one done. But I also expect the Astros to make the playoffs. I just, as much as I hate to say it, they probably will make the playoffs as a wild card. In knowing my luck, they'll probably win the division, but maybe I have some luck this season because
So Nick, let's talk about the AL Central, and I think it's a four-team race, but there's five very distinct teams here.
Oh, you're not including the White Sox in this
No,
race?
no, of course. Oh, yeah, of course.
Of course, yeah.
It's a five-team race. So we have the five different teams in this division, right? The Twins, which are utterly confusing. We don't know what direction they're going in.
You never know where they're going in every
You don't
single
know.
year.
They could win 20. They could be 20 games over 500 to the All-Star break, and then they somehow miss the playoffs each year. They are somehow tied to win this division odds-wise, according to Vegas, with the Detroit Tigers that has a lot of upcoming talent. And you have guys like Terry Scoople. You have guys that, if they could put together like Spencer Torkelson, so you have the pieces here that they can make a run into the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Then you have the Royals, which are probably one of the hottest young players in the league in Bobby Witt Jr. He's going to spearhead this offense, plus 280 to win the division. And then you have the Guardians, which you have old, reliable J-Ram, probably the most underrated MLB star. If the average person saw J-Ram, they wouldn't even recognize him. And the guy has had such a decorated baseball career. Talk about a guy that's been in the league for about 10 years now. He's made multiple All-Star games. He's made the All-MLB teams a couple times. He has multiple Silver Sluggers. Hall of very good type player. Not Hall of Fame, but Hall of very good. I would say if he has another 3 or 4 more seasons like he's been having over the last couple of years, you could maybe talk about him to make the Hall, but not right now. And then you have the White Sox. And that's where the analysis stops.
Oh, God. I know this isn't baseball related, but I just got it up. I just got a football update, and oh man,
Tell me.
Russell Wilson just signed with the Giants.
Oh, there you go. You got him. Let Russ cook.
Oh my god. Now I'm getting phone calls. This is not the time, folks. This is baseball season. But let's go back to the Tigers. I love the Tigers this season, Johnson, for a lot of things. They had a phenomenal offseason if you look at what they did this past season. I mentioned Gleyber Torres, great second baseman, solid contact hitter, can get you some pop as well. They signed Tommy Canley, which I was really extremely upset by. I wanted the Yankees to bring him back. But the biggest move, in my opinion, that they made was getting Jack Flaherty from the Dodgers. We saw what he did in the World Series for that team. He's going to do wonders as the number 2 starter in this rotation behind, as you mentioned, Tariq Skubal. It's going to be a great 1-2 punch in this rotation. You mentioned the potential as well as guys like Torkelson, Colt Keith, Trey Sweeney, Riley Green. There's a lot of potential on this team. I really do like them. Remember, I liked them last season going into the year as the division winner. They didn't get it done, but they did make that nice run in the playoffs. The Guardians is a weird team for me. Outside of J Ram and Stephen Kwan, I like Lane Thomas as well. The rotation's going to be interesting to see what they do because you're still without Shane Bieber for a majority of the season. You probably won't have him until the summer, but at least you got him to sign back with you, which is a nice get for them. And if you look as well as the Royals, they're still, in my opinion, I think the problem for them is their bullpen. They're not as strong as they probably need to be if they want to make a postseason run. And the Twins, as you mentioned, I don't know what direction they're going into. So they could be a playoff team. They might just miss the playoffs entirely because that's exactly what happened last season. If you remember, they had a playoff spot all but locked up and they epically collapsed at the end of the season. That's how the Tigers made it into the postseason. But their rotation is strong as well, so they could definitely make a run into the postseason. But I'm going to go with Detroit to win this division again. I'm going to stick with my pick from last season, and I will go with the Detroit Tigers to win this division, and we'll see if they can get it done.
Yeah, and that's gonna mirror my pick as well. I forgot to even mention my pick at the end of this. I'm going with the Tigers as well. So that's our
Yeah, so the
first
Tigers
push.
are not winning this division. I'm sorry, folks. All
Sorry,
right, so
guys.
if you want to pick, the other 3 teams, hell, if you want to be spicy and pick the White Sox, I mean, go for it.
Yeah,
But
plus 30,000 odds. By the way, I've never seen that in my life.
before we go into the next division, can we see what the win total is for the White Sox this season? What would you guess it is?
I could look. I would probably guess it at 42.
Okay, I have the number. You
What
said
is it?
42. It is
Yeah.
over 53 and a half.
Wow, the under is a
So
lock.
bad.
Under is a lock.
It might be. It really might be. I can't ever. You know what's bad, Johnson? When I can't name you 2 of their 5 stars in the rotation. I pretty much know a lot of baseball players. I don't know half of their White Sox rotation this season.
I
And
couldn't tell you
trade
anything
a
either.
Crochet away for. I like Kyle Teal, but not enough to trade Eric Crochet away. So Godspeed, White Sox. You're going to be here for another long season this year. Hopefully, it's not as bad as last year. But, Johnson, let's transition over into the National League. And there was a lot of movement in the National League. And I guess we might as well start with the NL East. And I hate to say it. I know what happened. This was probably the biggest move of the entire offseason. But Juan Soto did go to the New York Mets this previous offseason, a record-breaking deal, $765 million with the Mets for 15 years. Pretty much ensuring that he's going to be a Met for life. They did bring back Sean Manaea, a huge get as well, getting back Pete Alonso. Clay Holmes transitioning from reliever to starter this season. We'll see if that works out for the Mets. And they didn't really lose too much in the offseason. The biggest loss they had was probably Luis Severino in that rotation. But I think just getting back Alonso, I know getting Soto means a lot, but I think getting back Alonso was the biggest get for the Mets as well because the first baseman slot for them was a big question mark because it looked like it was going to be Mark Vientos playing first and Brett Beatty playing third. And now instead you have Alonso playing first, you have Vientos playing third, and you can go with either Brett Beatty or Jesse Winker or maybe even a Starling Marte or someone to play that DH spot. The Mets lineup is strong. It's going to come down to the rotation because you have Senga coming off an injury last year. Manaea is currently hurt. Frankie Montes, the guy of the offseason, is also hurt. And opening day, they're going to be going with Clay Holmes as starter.
Ah, yes, Clay Holmes as your starter, just as the Yankees drew it up a couple of years ago.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I don't know. The Mets. I want to say they have the best odds in the division. Do they have the best odds, or do the Braves have the best odds?
The Braves have the best odds, but I will never pick that team, nor will I pick the Phillies, so
Yeah,
I'm picking the
you
Mets.
forget the Mets. I understand. I think I understand why the Braves have the best odds, and it just comes down to you bringing back Acuna and Strider at some point. So you're just getting those two guys is going to help you, astronomically. And Chris Sale was a Cy Young last year for them. They have a nice solid bullpen. Olsen, Albies, Riley are strong middle infielders for them. Jurickson Profar was a huge get for them as well in free agency. The fact that he didn't get signed for a number of weeks, and the Braves said, well, why not? Like, let's just bring in this guy. He was a solid player in San Diego. Why don't we just sign him? So they did. The biggest loss obviously was Max Fried, but they still have a good rotation outside of it. Ronaldo Lopez was a sensation, for them last year. Really turned out, the White Sox could not believe how good he was pitching at one point last season.
Hey,
Um,
I know this team doesn't mean anything anymore, but I can't name a single free agent the Marlins signed. Not a single one.
it wasn't many. There was weeks where they hadn't spent a single penny on free agency.
I'm pretty sure for the first 2 months of free agency, they didn't spend a single dollar.
Cal Quantrill, I mean, he's something. I like Cal
Oh
Quantrill.
yeah, former Rockies ace Quantrill. Yeah, let's go.
I like him. You get Sandy back at least this year.
I hope they trade him somewhere.
He's gonna get traded at some point.
I hope
He's not staying there that long.
Sandy is going to be Yankee and be reunited with Jazz.
I think if you're a Marlin fan, the only thing you're looking forward to is seeing how Connor Norby does.
He's injured.
I know he's injured now, but at least when he is healthy, that's who you're looking forward to because he's the quote unquote guy that might be the future of this team. Then by future of this team, I mean he'll probably be traded in 2 or 3 years.
I think you guys need another Dominican in the Bronx to replace Juan Soto. So
I would love Sandy.
Sandy.
We could use him because we're starting Carlos Carrasco. We could probably use Sandy Alcantara right now. I would take him in a heartbeat.
Listen, I know he had a bad season last year because the Tommy John and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it was apparent all year, but averaging out for the last couple of years, he's been like around a 3.1, 3.2 ERA. So
and they need
pretty good for you guys
to come back as well.
Another guy I want to get traded.
Yeah.
But let's stop talking about tomorrow. Let's go down to the next division. Let's talk about the NL West.
Well, who was your pick by the way? The Mets.
Oh, the Mets.
Yeah,
if I'm not picking Phillies or Braves, it's got to be the Mets.
I'm not. I don't really have beef with the Braves. The Phillies, it's basically a Philadelphia basis if I don't want to pick them. I'm just gonna. I think and our good friend Russell Godet is gonna probably listen to this. I think for your sake, Russell, I'm not gonna pick the Mets just to double mush it. I'm just gonna go with Atlanta, and just hopefully for your sake, I mush Atlanta in that spot. So thank me later if the Mets win the division, and it's not because we double picked them. NL West, I mean, what's more to say, Johnson? It's the Dodgers to lose.
Yeah, pretty much. This is the Dodgers to lose. It doesn't matter what.
I like Arizona. Arizona does look good though.
Arizona's not even gonna make the playoffs.
You don't think they're gonna make the playoffs?
No,
I don't know about that.
No, because of spoiler alert, maybe not spoiler alert, but 3 of those teams in the NL East are going to make them. So 2 spots from the NL wildcard being straight from the NL East.
3 of them are going to make it in the NL East?
I think 3 out of the NL East and AL East are going to make the playoffs.
Wow. It's tough because the Diamondbacks have I think one of the stronger rotations in the NL. Corbin Burns was a solid get, and Zach Gallen, obviously, we know what his potential is. And I think Kelly's a good 3.
I think it's like a 50-50 if they make the playoffs.
Plus, they got Josh Naylor. I like that trade for them.
But if I had to put money on, I'd bet that they're not going to make the playoffs. That'd be the betting odds, just because the NL is too stacked.
I made this pick last year, and it really backfired. I'm going to say it again this year, Johnson. I don't think San Diego makes it. I think San Diego misses.
San Diego also misses in mine.
I think there's so much rumors about Dylan Cease getting traded. I think it's going to happen at one point or another because he's also a free agent at the end of the season. And, you have great talent in Tatis, obviously. Jackson Morrell, the rookie of the year. Machado, we know, is a big time player. Luis Arias as well. Their bullpen looks solid, but their rotation is interesting because Cease could get traded at some point. Michael King was good for you last year. Yu Darvish is starting to get up there in age, and you did bring in Nick Pivetta from the Red Sox, so they're weird. I know I did it last year, and I said they were going to make it, and then they eventually made it. I think that I just like the Diamondbacks for some reason a lot more than them this season going into the year roster wise. But we're both in agreement. It's the Dodgers lose. They brought in. It's ridiculous what they've done this offseason too. Sasaki, they brought in Tanner Scott, they brought back Teoscar, they brought in Blake Snell for God's sake. I mean, if they lose this division, it's probably the I don't even care if they win the World Series. It would basically be on the equivalent of what happened with Ohio State losing to Michigan and still winning the national title. It doesn't matter. You couldn't win this division with this roster. Like, come on. Like you can't lose the division. What's their what do you think their over under is win total wise?
For
The
I'm not really
Dodgers.
sure. Yeah, I'm trying to think. 107.5.
103.5.
I wasn't too far
You're not
off.
far off, yeah. I would probably hammer the over. They're already off to a 2-0 start after beating the Cubs in Japan,
I
so
figured they're gonna win. They were gonna win around 110, or
yeah.
105. So I just split the middle. I split the difference between the two of them.
We're, every baseball listen, every fan in baseball has their enemies and stuff, Yankees, Red Sox and all stuff like that. Mets and Phillies, Mets and Braves, whatever. We're all in agreement that we just want someone to beat the Dodgers.
Yep.
We
There's
just
like a
someone just someone beat the
there's like a
Dodgers.
handshake agreement, except those teams can't be the Braves and Phillies. So there are
Two
27
good
other teams that
teams.
are
Yeah.
eligible.
Yeah, I don't know if I would want. I don't know if I would agree with that with the Red Sox either. But
Yeah, you probably don't want the Red Sox or the Astros. So for you, it's 27 others.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And the Phillies. I just don't want any Philadelphia team to win ever.
All right, 26 teams for Nick, 27 for me.
Yeah. So we'll go to the NL Central. That's probably the one division that I think has the most intrigue in the NL because I mean again the NL East could come down to three teams. Obviously, and I forgot to mention we didn't talk about the Nationals. I think I like their upside this season, but they're not there yet either. Nowhere near close to being ready for a playoff run. But the NL Central, you could make the case, Johnson. Every single team. And we say it every single season, but you could make the case every single team in this division could win the division.
Yeah,
And that's
and
saying because considering the Cardinals are pretty much rebuilding, they still could win the division.
I would say it's a three-team race right now
Three
with
team?
two long shots. Yeah, I would say the Pirates and the Cardinals are in the back seat, but they can
That's
take
fair.
over.
Yeah.
I would say the Brewers and the Reds are right there, kind of like inching up close to the Cubs, who really spent a lot and really reshaped their roster. Uh,
Okay.
and I think it's the Cubs to lose right now, but I think the Reds are going to sneak up and take it from them. So I'm going to pick the Reds here.
Going with the Reds. Okay. Hey, Ellie De La Cruz could be that sleeper MVP pick this season.
I think he had a slump last year, and I think he's going to rebound strong. I think he's going to be one of the best young shortstops in the game, next to Bobby Witt.
Hey, listen, as a fantasy owner of him, I do not hate that take whatsoever. Hopefully that is the case for him. Uh the Cubs, I say it every year. It's like you think they're gonna get it done, and then something stupid happens for them. They brought in Kyle Tucker. It's right now a 1-year rental. Maybe they bring it back for next year. At least they're hoping to. But you also have guys like Nico Horner and Dansby Swanson, Ian Happ, Pete Armstrong, and Seiya Suzuki in your lineup. They have I always forget how to say his name. I think it's Amanaga
Shota.
or Imanaga. I think it's Imanaga actually. Now that I think about it, they have Imanaga and Steele. I guess you have James Taillon and Matthew Boyd at the end of that rotation. Ryan Presley's not a bad closer. I don't hate the Reds also because I think if you also don't forget they brought in Terry Francona, the former manager of the Red Sox and the Cleveland Guardians, who's had obviously great success in the postseason. He's now the new manager of that Reds team, so he brings potential experience for that roster going into the season. I think for me, I'm gonna. I know they lost a lot in the offseason. I'm just gonna pick Milwaukee to win again. I'm not as confident in it.
Boring pick.
It is a boring
Boring
pick.
pick.
It is a boring pick. I don't like it either. I would rather have the Pirates win, in my opinion, but they're nowhere near it. I think the biggest thing for Milwaukee is that they're getting back Brandon Woodruff, which is a huge get for their rotation at some point this season. And I love Jackson Churio. I think he's one of the more brighter, younger stars in this game. And you're also in that weird spot where you just trade Devin Williams. So now, what is your bullpen going to look like? I think they'll be just fine. They're kind of like what Tampa Bay has been these last couple of years, where it doesn't matter who's the closer of this team. They just insert another guy, and oh look, their bullpen's still working wonders for them. Now, will it lead to them losing to one of the wild card teams in the playoffs like they did last season? More than likely, but I still think it's Milwaukee's to win this year. I've trusted the Cubs so many times the last couple of seasons. I think I even picked them last year to win the division, and I did, and it just hasn't worked out. So I'll go with Milwaukee to win, but not as confident as it to happen. But Johnson, who are some of your wild card teams? We'll start in the AL. I think you said three in the AL East. You have the Orioles winning the division.
And I have the Yankees and the Red Sox
Okay.
taking the other two spots, with the Rangers rounding them off.
Okay. I'm gonna go. I honestly I don't know. I'm gonna go with the Astros as one of my wild cards. I'm gonna go as well. I think I hate to say it, but I think Red Sox also. And I'm gonna make a bold take. I don't think Baltimore makes the postseason this year. I'm gonna make that bold take. I think Baltimore misses the postseason. My final team into the playoffs. I'm gonna go with Cleveland. I'll go with the Guardians to make it.
Yeah,
So
it's so tough leaving a postseason without Cleveland in there, but I had to do it. I'll give the odd to the Creed-loving Texas Rangers.
I think Texas will be a good team this year. They were so bad last season, but it was because of injuries. If they
Yeah,
stay healthy, they're going to make their playoff team easily.
especially well, you see my predictions a little bit. Why I think I'm high on Texas,
Yeah.
but let's go to the NL wildcard spots. I kind of spoiled mine. I said I was going to have the Rangers and the Braves
Or the
also
Braves
in
and the
there.
Phillies. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Braves and the Phillies, excuse me, out of that NL East division to also make the playoffs. And I'm got the Cubs in there as well. I think the Cubs finally make it back to the
Oh, so
postseason baseball.
you got two in the NL Central making it.
I do, because I think the Cubs could really make it, because they were so close last year and they added some nice pieces. I think it gets them over the hump.
Okay. I'm gonna just play it safe. I agree with your take. I think it's gotta be three teams in the NL East. It's gonna be Braves, Phillies, and Mets. Um, in that division, I know I just realized I put Braves as a wild card, but I had them as my division winner. Um, and my last wild card would be the Diamondbacks. I think I did the same thing last season, and it turned out catastrophic. But I think the Diamondbacks get it done this time. I think adding Burns is going to really look good for that rotation. And I think at some point the Padres are just going to trade Cease, and it's going to really hurt them. And I think that's going to cost them a playoff spot. So I'll go with Arizona as one of my last wild card teams. So for those at home, our teams for the playoffs, I have the Yankees, the Rangers, and Tigers winning their respective divisions. Johnson has the Orioles, Astros, and Tigers winning their respective divisions of the AL. In the NL, I have the Braves, Dodgers, and Brewers winning their respective divisions. You have the Mets, Dodgers, and Reds. And our wild card teams, I have the Astros, Red Sox, Guardians in the AL, the Diamondbacks, Mets, and Phillies in the NL. And for you, you have the Yankees, Red Sox, and Rangers in the AL, the Braves, Phillies, and Cubs in the NL. But now, Johnson, let's go into the individual awards for this 2025 season. Let's start off with the AL Rookie of the Year. Who do you have winning that prestigious award?
Uh, Kumar Rocker.
Ooh, I love
Remember
that
how
pick.
remember how good he was coming out of college, and he failed his medical his medical exam given
Yep.
by the Mets, and that's why he got put in this situation. So I think Kumar has all this untapped potential, and he's had a lot of years now to kind of sit in the system, and I think he's gonna be rookie of the year. He's waited long enough.
I would love it. Hey, listen, if you look at the odds too, it's kind of a nice solid value pick as well. If you were to do that, do you have maybe a sleeper pick as well? If not him,
I think he is the sleeper
yeah,
pick
he
that
probably is a sleeper pick. Now that I'm thinking
I'm
about
gonna
it,
rock with. I mean, the obvious pick would be, geez, I'm trying to think right now.
I could tell you who I think is the obvious pick.
Go ahead.
It's probably a homer pick for me doing this, but I'm gonna go with Jason Dominguez.
I forgot he is eligible. I'm
He's
still not going to pick him, but
he's finally getting the starting left field job I think he's going to do wonders for this team. He had a nice little stint before he got hurt. The hype around this guy has been so huge for how many years now? It's got to happen this year. I think he's going to do wonders for this team. At least I'm hoping he does wonders for this team. So I'm just going to pick him as my rookie of the year in the AL. If I had to go with a sleeper pick, hell, I'll go with your pick. Give me Kumar Rocker as my sleeper. Why not?
He threw that no hitters almost 6 years ago now.
Yeah, yeah,
Crazy how fast time goes.
yeah. I listen. As a fantasy owner of him, I am right with you. I'm praying that actually happens. What about the National League? What do you got for that one?
Rookie of the year? That's a good question. The National League Rookie of the Year is going to be Roki, obviously. How can I pick against the Japanese sensation?
Oh, disgusting, Johnson.
I mean, water is wet. You have Japanese players playing for the Dodgers, and he's going to win Rookie of the Year. So
Wow, Johnson, look at that. Both of our teams making free agency moves today. You just signed
Patriots.
Stephon Diggs. Congrats.
You know what? I was sitting there in the office today, and I'm thinking, man, I really hope we don't sign him.
Well, you're gonna have him for 3 seasons, so have a nice.
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh man, we're desperate, aren't we? All right, let's just go back to baseball.
I know. I'll just say this: it's probably the one time only where we've done like a different sport, and we've got a news broken during the podcast instead of after the podcast. But of course, it's not during an NFL one. Well, don't worry, we'll get into NFL season in a few weeks when we break down the NFL draft. I'm very much looking forward to that. But as you mentioned, let's go back to baseball. You know what? For spite, I'm not picking Sasaki. I'm going to go with Dylan Cruz to win it from the Washington Nationals. I love the potential that he's going to bring to this team. I think he's going to do wonders and get the Nationals, not to a playoff spot, obviously, but I think he'll do just enough to get them around a 70 to 75 win team. And that's the starting, that'll be a starter for them, making it a lot more better for them the next couple of years. Him and James Wood are going to be great for this team. I'll go with Dylan Cruz, and yes, it's probably a spite for me to do it, but that's how I am. I don't want any Dodgers winning any awards. So I'll go with him. If I had a long shot to win it, give me Jordan Lawler from the Diamondbacks. Do you have a long shot for that, or you just go with Sasaki?
No, I'm gonna rock with Roki.
All right, what do you got for MVP for the AL?
Gunnar Henderson.
Gunnar Henderson, okay.
I've been saying it for years. I think he was going to be the best prospect out of Jackson Holiday. Pretty much anyone on any of those young picks on that team. I thought it was going to be Gunnar, and I've been proven right so far. So why not take it one more step and say he's going to be the MVP this year?
I'm trying to see you had Trout last year. You did have him as your sleeper last year.
I did. So, I think he does it this year. I'm going to move him up one.
Well,
I'll make Trout my sleeper too. I'll make Trout my unofficial. Yeah, I'm just pushing this year.
Just do what you basically did last season. I like it. I don't hate that. I'm gonna kind of do what you're doing. I'm gonna move up a pick, but I'm gonna do it differently. I'm gonna go with Bobby Witt to win it this year. I think he gets it done. I think he's just a sensational player.
It's funny. I remember talking about, not to cut you off, I remember talking about him at card shows with guys like 4 years ago, saying I don't know if Bobby Witt can do this, and I'm pretty sure he was maybe it was 2022. Or 2023, I forget what year it was, and he was like just drafted, and people weren't sure to buy his cards. I'm like, well, obviously, if you bought during that time and didn't sell immediately, you got hosed. But he did pan out, so he's been one of those guys, hyped up prospects that did pan out, and he could add an MVP at the age of 25. So that'd be almost amazing for him. So we'll see.
I'm gonna go with Vlad Jr. as my sleeper pick for this award. I always say it every year: if you're in a contract year, you're more than likely going to be doing something wonders. That's why I picked Juan Soto last season to be my MVP. And if not for Aaron Judge having the season he had last season, you could have made the case that Soto probably wins MVP. I think Vlad's going to have a sensational season for Toronto to the point where he's either going to get traded at the deadline for a lot of prospects, or in this offseason, he's going to get a record-breaking deal from any team because he's still very, very young, as you mentioned earlier on. I'll have him as my sleeper pick in the AL MVP race. What about the NL MVP race? Are you gonna go with Ohtani?
Yeah. Let's just skip this and go straight for everything else because we're both picking Ohtani. It's gonna happen.
I really want to go opposite. I'm gonna just pick him. I really do think Soto could win it, but I know how the baseball writers are. They're gonna want to pick him. If I will say, if I had a sleeper for this MVP race in the NL, I would go. I'm gonna go with. Let me go with Lindor. I'm gonna go with Lindor because he should have won it last season, in my opinion. But Otani had an insane year where he was never going to win it, which sucks. But I think Lindor could do it again. So that's what we have for MVP. What about Cy Young?
Cy Young for both the AL and ML. I'm going to go with Spencer Strider for the NL and Jacob DeGrom from the AL. So I think
Ooh, you're
the
going straight up to
Texas
ground.
Rangers
Okay.
rotation is going to have the Rookie of the Year pitcher in Kumar Rocker and the Cy Young Award winner in Jacob DeGrom.
Okay. Well, I hate that he's on this team now, but he is also on my fantasy team. Remember, Johnson, that was my strategy last season when I picked Tariq Schoolball as my MVP, as my Cy Young winner. I'm gonna go with Garrett Crochet from the Red Sox, and I hate to say it, but I think he could get it done. And he's another guy that's in a free agency type of year, so he's looking for some money right now, and I think he gets it done and wins the Cy Young. If I had a sleeper pick in the American League, I would go. I'm. Is it? Is it? I might go with your pick in Degrom as a sleeper. Yeah, screw it. Why not? I'm gonna go with your. I'm gonna go with your guys. My sleeper pick. NL.
Follow your dreams.
You know what? I'm just gonna do it. Everyone's expecting it. I'm gonna go with Skeens in the NL to win the Cy Young. It's probably not the not the sexy pick. I think everyone's expecting him to get it done this year. If I had to pick a sleeper for that for the National League, I will go. You know, I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna go with your sleeper. I'm gonna go with your pick. It's Spencer Strider. That's my sleeper. Why not? Why not? They're probably both mush now because we're kind of on the same wavelength. So sorry.
Yeah, sorry guys.
All right, now it's time for the fun part of the show, Johnson. The last thing we pick on, and that is the teams to make the World Series and who is your World Series champion. I think I have an idea of who you're going to pick for the World Series and the NL at least. The AL, I think, is wide open in my opinion. But who do you have in the American League? Let's start off with that.
The New York Yankees.
No, don't do this to me, man.
New York Yankees.
Why are you doing this to me?
Because every other team in the AL is kind of bad.
We're so injured. Is that it?
Well, it's okay to be injured in March. You don't want to be injured in October. So.
We're injured in October, though. We don't have Garrett Cole.
Yeah. But you're going to get Sandy mid-season. You'll be fine. You'll figure it out.
The sad part is it probably will happen, but they probably will go after Sandy at some point this season. I think if I could make a bold take, that's probably the boldest take. They probably trade for Alcantara at some point this season.
And knowing the Marlins, you'll probably get him for 15 cents and a bag of cheese doodles. So
probably. What do you? Let's just go straight. What do you have for the NL? Dodgers?
Yes, sir.
Dodgers win the World Series, I'm assuming?
In 4 games.
Yeah. Oh, God. I'm going to pick the Dodgers, too, for the World Series and the NL pennant. I'm going to try to mush the shit out of them because we tried to do that last season. Obviously, it didn't work. The AL, as I mentioned, is so tough. I'm not going to pick the Yankees because I'm not trying to fully put them into a stratosphere where they're going to get even more further hurt. Do I root for just chaos? Do I just root for something that I really don't want that I think could happen?
You should pick the White Sox.
I don't even have them in the playoffs. I don't even think they're going to be. They're going to probably be the worst team in baseball again.
Yeah, exactly. That's pure chaos.
That would be pure chaos. I think I made this my World Series pick last year. I'm going to do it again. I'm just going to go with the Texas Rangers. I had Rangers Dodgers last year, and obviously turned out so well.
So you're the reason why the Rangers lost. Okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, that checks out.
I had them win the World Series too. But in fairness, you could have made the same case for your pick. You had the Orioles and Diamondbacks.
Well, at least one of those teams were good.
At least come postseason time, they weren't good. But yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So this was a very interesting show we had tonight, because not only do we get to break down all this stuff, Johnson, you and I both had some NFL free agency news that now we'll have to break down in a few weeks' time when we get to the NFL draft. So, yeah. What a interesting podcast here tonight on the show.
Now, I just want to set a reminder for all those customers of T-Mobile. Today is Tuesday, and you may not hear this, but probably hear tomorrow, but you got to redeem your full season of MLB TV.
Good.
On the T-Mobile Tuesday, and I'm not sponsored by them because I just have
we're
T-Mobile.
definitely not sponsored by them.
T-Mobile, if you want to throw me a bag for the couple hundred people that listen to this,
we have to clip that and just send it to them.
Here's the plug. Go on the T-Mobile Tuesdays and download, I think it's called the T-Lite app now, that MLB TV offer. I do it every year.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You threw me for a loop. You started the plug. I go, where is this going? Just not expecting it, but that is fair. That is fair. Definitely make sure you have your MLB TV subscriptions ready for this coming Thursday. As I mentioned, it will be opening day for this season and the 2025 season. We've already had 2 games start, but are those really the opening day games? Not a chance in hell. The opening day is this Thursday, and we'll see how this season kickstarts. The first game of the day, I think, is the Brewers and Yankees. So I'll probably be in a bad mood by the end of the day. But maybe I'll be surprised this season.
Oh, and you have to redeem this by April 1st, by the way.
You got some time.
So yeah, you have plenty of time.
You got a couple days. I think I still have. Never mind. I'm not gonna make that comment. No comment. Any final thoughts before wrap this one up?
Go baseball. I don't have a team, and hold on 1 second here.
Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets.
We used to do it as a rip to people, but
that was a gag at one point. Now it's not anymore.
Now it's like a term of endearment. Let's meet the Mets this season.
They don't have Jose Iglesias though, so they can't be playing that song anymore from last year. So
unless they want to give him rights to it.
I don't think they will. I was going to ask, when is that vacancy going to be done for you? Are you going to have a team at some point?
Probably
next
not.
Year or two?
Maybe when the A's go to Vegas. That's when I'll decide.
That's not even a meme. Like if the A's in fact do go to Vegas, which I think it's pretty much confirmed, isn't it, at this point?
Yeah, but you never know. Maybe another team moves to another city I want.
What's the other city you want? Let me guess, Atlantic City?
Yeah, maybe Tampa Bay moves to Atlantic City if they get a baseball team.
They're playing at a minor league ballpark already this year, so I guess maybe they could venture into that stratosphere. You're probably going to be an A's fan in 2 years.
Yeah, probably.
God, going from the Marlins to the Athletics that is a bold choice. That is a very bold choice. But we'll see. We'll see if that is indeed the case. But that is going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. The 2025 MLB season is on the horizon, kicking off this Thursday with first pitch. And we'll see who comes out of each respective division in the AL and the NL, as well as making wild cards this season and moving on into the postseason, trying to overtake last year's World Series champion, the Los Angeles Dodgers. This has been Nicholas Bavona, joined alongside by my co-host Andrew Johnson for the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week and enjoy your 2025 MLB season.